The soft glow of the chandeliers shimmered across the ballroom, reflecting off glasses of champagne and sequined gowns. To anyone walking in, it looked like perfection. A birthday celebration drenched in wealth, laughter, and endless toasts. But behind the polished smiles and the clinking glasses, something restless stirred like a storm building far out at sea. I felt it in the stiffness of my father's jaw, in the way my mother's fingers tightened around her flute of champagne. A night meant to honor me carried a weight I couldn't yet name. Before I go any further, I want to pause. If this story touches something inside you, or if you've ever had a family moment turn into something unforgettable, please share your feelings in the comments. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? I love hearing the cities, the places, the lives these stories reach. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Your support means more than you know, and it helps these stories live on. My name is Lucas Ramirez. I'm 25 years old, the only son of Ricardo and Elena Ramirez. Our family owns a chain of luxury resorts across Florida, a name whispered with respect in the business world. On paper, I should have had it all: status, security, a future laid out like a red carpet. Tonight, that future gleamed before me in the form of a lavish birthday party at a Miami Beach hotel. A string quartet played softly. Waiters floated by with trays of hors d'oeuvres, and guests in tuxedos and evening gowns moved like pieces on a grand chessboard. As I stood near the center of it all, a smile fixed on my face, I felt oddly disconnected, as though I were watching a play in which I'd been cast without rehearsal. My father stood tall in a tailored navy suit, his silver cufflinks catching the light each time he raised a glass to greet a guest. He looked every bit the titan of industry, confident, commanding, untouchable. My mother, Elena, in a flowing emerald gown, drifted through the crowd with grace, her laughter lilting, though her eyes kept darting always to the same corner of the room. That corner. I couldn't ignore it either. Out of place among the glittering spectacle, my Uncle Gabriel sat with a glass of whiskey, his posture relaxed, but his gaze unflinching. He didn't belong to the luxury, not in his wrinkled jacket or his scuffed shoes. Yet somehow he held the kind of presence that bent the air around him. Every time my eyes met his, I felt my chest tighten, as if he carried knowledge no one else dared to speak aloud. I tried to focus on the laughter on Sophia, my best friend from college, who teased me about finally being a quarter of a century old. She looked radiant, her dark curls bouncing as she laughed, but even she noticed the tension in the air. "Lucas," she whispered, leaning closer, "why is your uncle staring at you like that?" I had no answer. The DJ announced the cake would soon be brought in, and the crowd gathered closer, anticipation rising. Fireworks waited outside, ready to paint the Miami sky. To everyone else, the night brimmed with promise, a celebration of youth and success. But to me, every second dragged heavier, the silence beneath the music growing louder. It was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Yet deep down, I already knew something was about to shatter. The applause for the cake announcement still echoed when I noticed a shift in the air. A ripple moved through the crowd, subtle but undeniable, like a cold draft slipping under a closed door. Heads turned, glasses paused mid-air. And then I saw him. Gabriel. He was late, of course. Always late. My father's younger brother walked in without apology, dressed in a wrinkled gray jacket that had seen better days, his shirt collar open, shoes dull with wear. In a room full of polished tuxedos and shimmering gowns, he looked almost out of place, like a shadow that had wandered into the light. And yet it was impossible to ignore him. The weight he carried wasn't on his shoulders, but in his eyes. Heavy, unflinching. Eyes that seemed to pierce straight through me. I hadn't seen Gabriel at a family gathering in years. He usually stayed away, claiming he didn't fit in with the world my parents had built. He was the uncle I barely knew, the one who hovered at the edges of photographs, sometimes forgotten in the telling of family stories. And yet tonight, on my 25th birthday here, he was sober, silent, watching. My father stiffened the moment Gabriel entered. His hand, mid-gesture, as he welcomed a business partner, froze in the air before curling into a fist at his side. My mother's smile faltered, then snapped back like a mask she refused to let slip. No words passed between them, but I felt the tension vibrate across the room, as if the walls themselves knew his presence was unwelcome. Lucas Sophia whispered at my side. Her hand brushed my arm, grounding me. Why is everyone staring at him? I swallowed hard. That's my uncle, I murmured. She studied Gabriel for a moment, her brows knitting together. He looks like he's about to say something. I wanted to laugh it off, but I couldn't. Because she was right. Gabriel didn't look like a man there to celebrate. He looked like a man who had carried something for far too long and was finally ready to drop it, no matter who it crushed. As the waiters wheeled in the towering cake sparklers blazing at its edges, the crowd broke into applause again. "Make a wish," Lucas' voices called. I forced a smile, leaned forward, and the chant of "blow, blow, blow" filled the ballroom. For a fleeting second, the noise drowned out the unease, wrapping me in a cocoon of forced celebration. But then I felt it. That stare. Gabriel's eyes locked on me, unwavering. The chant faded into a dull hum in my ears. My chest tightened. The candles flickered, waiting for my breath, but I couldn't move. And then, over the laughter, over the music, his voice cut through the room like glass shattering. It's time. He knows the truth. The crowd silenced in an instant. Forks hovered mid-air. Conversations collapsed. Even the sparklers fizzled into smoke, as though the night itself was holding its breath. I froze, my lips still parted above the cake. My mother's hand found my shoulder, trembling. My father stepped forward, his voice sharp, commanding, already laced with fury. Not here, Gabriel. Not tonight. But Gabriel didn't flinch. His eyes never left mine. And in that silence I knew whatever was coming, it wouldn't be stopped. The sound of Gabriel's words still hung in the air when the silence pressed down on the room like a heavy curtain. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The candles flickered in front of me, waiting for a wish I could no longer form. Then the music died, cut mid-note. Laughter collapsed into whispers. Every eye turned not to me, but to him, my uncle, standing now, his glass abandoned, his face carved in stone. My mother's fingers dug into my shoulder. I felt the tremor in her hand before I even looked at her. "Lucas," she whispered, her voice a thread about to snap. "Don't listen. Please, just blow the candles." I turned toward her, but her eyes were wide with something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Real fear. Across the table, my father stepped forward, shoulders squared, jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might break. His voice lashed across the room. "Not here, Gabriel, not tonight. Sit down." But Gabriel didn't sit. His chair scraped harshly against the polished floor, the sound cutting through the silence like a blade. He reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a folded packet of papers, yellowed at the edges, the creases deep with age. My stomach twisted at the sight of it. "Tonight," he said, his voice hoarse but steady, "he deserves the truth." The guests shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rippling through sequined dresses and black tuxedos. Some leaned closer, hungry for drama. Others looked away, ashamed to be witnessing what was clearly a family unraveling in real time. I could barely breathe. My chest rose and fell too quickly, my throat dry, as if the air had turned to ash. My father took another step forward, fury vibrating through every word. "You will put that away, Gabriel, or I swear." "Swear what?" Gabriel shot back, his voice rising, echoing against the crystal and marble. His eyes burned, but not with anger alone. There was sorrow there buried deep, the kind that eats at a man for decades. He lifted the papers and let them fall onto the table beside my cake. The sound was small, but to me it was deafening. The guests gasped. My mother lunged forward, her emerald gown brushing against the table, her hand trembling above the packet as though touching it might ignite the room. "Please," she begged, voice cracking. "Don't do this. Not in front of him. Not in front of him." Gabriel's voice broke, and he jabbed a finger at me. "He's 25 years old. You think you can keep him in the dark forever?" I stared at the papers. Just paper. Ink and fibers. But my hands shook as though they weighed 1,000 pounds. Questions crashed inside my skull. What could be written there? Why now? Why tonight? Sophia leaned close, her whisper sharp in my ear. "Lucas, maybe you should see." I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering against my ribs. For the first time in my life, I looked at my parents not as pillars of strength, but as people cornered, desperate, terrified. And in that moment I realized the truth wasn't just about to be revealed. It was about to consume us all. The packet sat on the table like a live grenade, humming with danger, though it never moved. My pulse thundered in my ears. I couldn't take my eyes off it, even as my mother's hand trembled above the papers. For a second, I thought she might rip them away, hide them in her gown, anything to erase their existence. But she didn't. She froze. Her eyes flicked to my father, pleading, desperate, as if she no longer had the strength to fight this battle alone. Ricardo's palm came down on the table with a crack so sharp the crystal glasses rattled. Guests gasped. Some even stepped back, their heels scraping across the marble floor. "Enough, Gabriel," my father roared, his voice echoing through the ballroom. "You're not doing this, not here, not ever." Gabriel's jaw tightened. Slowly, with a precision that felt deliberate, he slid the top page free. Yellowed edges curled like dried leaves, the ink faded, but still legible. He held it up for me to see. A hospital record. My name written across it. Date the year I was born. The room tilted. My throat clenched. "Don't," my mother whispered, lunging forward, her fingers clawing for the page. "Please, Lucas doesn't need this, Gabriel snapped, pulling the paper just out of her reach. "He's lived 25 years built on lies. Tonight he gets the truth." My father's face flushed, red veins rising in his neck. He looked ready to strike, to tear the paper in half with his bare hands. But before he could, another voice cut through the chaos. "Gentlemen." It was Luis, our family's attorney, his deep baritone steady but strained. He stepped from the crowd, adjusting his glasses, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps this should be handled privately." Privately. The word stung. As if my life, my identity was just a business matter to sweep into a back room. "No," Gabriel said firmly, shaking his head. His eyes locked on mine again, unblinking. He deserves to hear it with his own ears from his own blood. My mother turned to Luis, tears streaking her cheeks, her voice breaking. "Please stop him. Stop this before it destroys everything." Luis's lips pressed into a thin line. His silence told me more than his words ever could. He knew. I felt the room closing in. Guests whispering, cameras from phones flashing discreetly, capturing my family tearing apart under chandeliers and sparklers. The life I thought I knew was unraveling thread by thread in front of strangers who had come to toast champagne and watch fireworks. Sophia gripped my arm, her voice low, urgent. "Lucas, breathe, just breathe," but I couldn't. My lungs burned, every inhale shallow and sharp. My hands trembled at my sides. I wanted to scream, to demand someone tell me what was written on that page, but my voice was trapped, buried under the weight of their silence. Gabriel placed the paper back on the stack, sliding it across the table toward me. His hand lingered steady, unshaken. "Read it, Lucas," he said, his tone no longer angry, but raw, almost mournful. "Read it, and you'll finally know why this night was never meant to be a celebration." The papers slid toward me, their edges brushing the frosting on my untouched cake. My hand twitched, half ready to reach for them, when Gabriel's voice, rough and unyielding, filled the silence. "Your real father is enough." My father's roar shattered the moment like a gunshot. The room jolted. Glasses tipped, silverware clattered. A woman in the back screamed, though nothing had touched her. The sheer violence in Ricardo's voice was enough to shake the chandelier above us. He lunged forward, slamming both hands on the table, sending plates rattling, champagne spilling in golden arcs. His face was crimson veins pulsing at his temples. "You will not say another word," he bellowed, pointing a trembling finger at his brother. "Not in my house. Not to my son." The crowd erupted. Murmurs rose into gasps, then into full-blown whispers, the kind that crawled across the walls and wrapped themselves around me. Phones lifted discreetly, red recording dots flashing. My life, my family's collapse, was being documented in real time, a grotesque spectacle no one could turn away from. Beside me, my mother broke. Her sob tore through the chaos, raw and primal. She stumbled to my side, clutching me with desperate hands. "Lucas, please," she cried, her tears soaking into my jacket. "You don't need to know. You don't. Let this night be yours. Forget him. Forget this." But how could I forget the weight of those papers still pressed against me, as if they had gravity of their own? Gabriel straightened, his voice booming over the noise. "He has the right to know he's not a child anymore. He deserves the truth whether you like it or not." "Truth," my father spat the word like venom. "You call this truth, all I see is poison." Their voices clashed, echoing like thunder inside my skull. My mother's sobs shook against my chest. The guests pulled back, forming a ring of horrified spectators, their faces pale, their eyes wide with the thrill of witnessing something forbidden. And then Sophia's hand found mine. Warm. Steady. She leaned close, her whisper cutting through the storm. "Lucas, you have a right to know the truth." Her words hit me harder than the shouting, harder than the sobbing. My throat constricted. My heart pounded so violently I thought it might burst. I looked at my father, his rage trembling on the edge of violence. At my mother, her face streaked with mascara, begging me to turn away. At Gabriel, his eyes dark, unwavering, holding a sorrow I could not yet understand. The ballroom was a powder keg. The smell of spilled champagne mingled with the heat of too many bodies pressed close. Every camera pointed, every whisper sharp as a blade. I felt the walls closing in, suffocating me. My voice cracked, barely more than a whisper, but enough for those nearest to hear. "Then someone tell me who I am!" And in that moment I knew there was no going back. The night of my 25th birthday had become the night my life would split in two. My words still hung in the air. Tell me who I am when the dam broke. My father surged toward Gabriel, fists clenched, his face a storm of rage. "I raised him," he shouted, voice booming so loud the chandeliers rattled. "Every meal, every lesson, every sacrifice, it was me, not you. He is my son. Mine." Gabriel didn't step back. He stood firm, shoulders squared, eyes blazing. "You gave him your roof, Ricardo. But his blood is mine. You can't erase that, not with money, not with lies." Their words clashed like steel sparks flying between them. I felt caught in the middle of a battlefield, the crossfire of two men who both claimed ownership of my soul. My mother sobbed behind me, her pleas dissolving into the air, drowned by their fury. The crowd pressed closer. Phones lifted whispers, hissing like snakes. Every face turned hungry, wide-eyed, desperate to consume the spectacle of my family collapsing in front of them. I wanted to disappear, to claw my way out of that gilded ballroom and breathe air that wasn't thick with betrayal. My chest tightened. My hands trembled. Betrayal cut deeper than any blade because it didn't come from strangers. It came from the people I trusted most. Ricardo's voice cracked with desperation, not just anger. I taught him to walk, to stand, to fight for his name. "Where were you, Gabriel? In some bar, in some shadow. You were never there." Gabriel's reply roared back, raw and merciless. "I was pushed out. You shoved me out of his life before he could even say my name. You stole him from me, Ricardo, and you know it." The room gasped. People leaned in, hanging on every word. My pulse pounded in my temples, each beat screaming louder. "This can't be real. This can't be my life." And then I felt a tug at my sleeve. I turned. Isabella, my cousin. Her face pale, her eyes darting nervously around us. She leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. "Lucas, I shouldn't say this, but I heard our grandparents talk about it once. About you, about Gabriel." Her words shot through me like ice water. My knees nearly buckled. "What did you hear?" I rasped. She shook her head, tears brimming. "Just that something was hidden, that the truth would come out someday. I thought they were just old secrets. I didn't think it was this." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I gripped the edge of the cake table to stay upright, frosting smearing against my hand. Around me, the shouting rose again. Ricardo roaring, Gabriel snarling, voices colliding so violently I couldn't tell one from the other. My vision blurred. Betrayal pressed on my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. My father, my uncle, my mother's tears, Isabella's whisper, Sophia's steady grip on my hand. The truth wasn't just near. It was clawing its way into the open, unstoppable, no matter how hard they tried to bury it. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear it, or if hearing it would destroy me completely. Isabella's whisper still echoed in my ears when the shouting reached a fever pitch. My father's voice tore through the room, raw with rage, while Gabriel's reply came back like a hammer against steel. Guests clutched their pearls, lifted their phones, some even whispering prayers under their breath. And then, cutting through the chaos, Luis spoke. "Enough!" The single word silenced the ballroom more effectively than any shout. All eyes turned to the attorney who had quietly served our family for decades, always in the background, never in the spotlight. His usually calm face was tight, his jaw set. He stepped forward, tugging at his suit jacket, as though bracing himself for what was to come. "I can't stand by anymore," Luis said, his voice steady, carrying the authority of truth. "For years I've honored the vow to keep this locked away. But tonight," he paused, his eyes landing on me. "Tonight, he deserves to know." My breath caught. My father's head snapped toward him. "Luis, don't you dare!" But it was too late. From inside his leather briefcase, Luis pulled a single envelope thicker than the rest, its edges frayed with time. My mother gasped, her knees buckling as she clutched at a chair for balance. Luis unfolded the paper with deliberate care, as if each crease carried the weight of 2.5 decades. He lifted it high enough for me to see the bold letters across the top. Birth certificate, my name, my date of birth. And then under the line marked, Father, the word that split my world open. Gabriel, my uncle. No, my father. I couldn't breathe. The room swayed. Every voice, every whisper fell into a muffled hum. My father, Ricardo. No, the man I had called father snatched the paper from Luis's hand with a roar. Lies, he shouted, his face twisted in fury. And before I could even blink, he ripped it down the middle, shredding the truth in 2 ragged halves. The sound of tearing paper was louder than thunder in my ears. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Someone screamed. My mother crumpled to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, her emerald gown pooling like spilled paint across the marble. But Gabriel didn't flinch. Slowly, almost grimly, he reached into his jacket once more. I knew you'd do that, he said, voice breaking, but resolute. From inside, he pulled another document, an identical copy, and laid it flat on the table, right where the cake once symbolized joy. You can rip one apart, Ricardo, but you can't destroy the truth. I stood frozen, my legs weak, the world spinning around me. Sophia slipped to my side, her arm bracing me as my knees threatened to give way. Her whisper steadied me. Breathe, Lucas. Just breathe. But how could I? The floor had fallen out beneath me. The man I loved as a father was no father at all. The man who stood across from me, fierce and broken, was my blood. And in that moment, surrounded by gasps and flashing cameras, I knew nothing in my life would ever be the same. The copy of the certificate lay on the table, untouched, undeniable. My chest heaved, every breath sharp, ragged, as though the truth itself had lodged in my lungs. I looked at it, then at them. Ricardo, Gabriel, my mother collapsed on the floor, and I realized my life had just been split clean in 2. The man I had called father all my life stepped forward, his rage spent, his eyes wide and wet. He reached toward me, his voice breaking no longer thunder, but pleading. Lucas, please, I raised you. Every scraped knee, every late-night study session, every time you needed me, I was there. I am your father. No piece of paper can take that from us. His words stabbed deep because they were true. Memories flooded me, his stern hand guiding me on a bicycle, his voice drilling me about grades, his rare but powerful nods of approval. All of it real. And yet Gabriel's voice cut in thick with emotion, trembling but unyielding. Lucas, I may not have been there to watch you grow, but I should have been. You are my blood, my son. They tried to bury it, but the truth cannot be erased. Not by lies, not by time. My hands shook, my heart screamed. Betrayal clawed at me from every angle. Every laugh at family dinners, every hug, every "I'm proud of you now" felt like glass in my skin. Was it love, or was it all a cover-up? My mother reached for me from the floor, mascara streaking down her face, her sobs choking her words. I only wanted to protect you, Lucas. Please, don't hate me. The crowd around us was silent now, hushed and reverent, as though watching the final act of a tragedy unfold. Cameras still recorded, but even they seemed muted, insignificant, compared to the weight crushing my chest. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. No scream, no curse, just a hoarse whisper clawing its way out. You all lied to me, every one of you. And you expect me to choose Ricardo's hand, hovered inches from mine. Gabriel's eyes begged me from across the table. My mother wept at my feet. And I couldn't breathe in that room a second longer. So I turned. The doors loomed ahead, tall and heavy, but my legs carried me forward anyway. Behind me, Ricardo's voice cracked with desperation. "Son, don't walk away! Please, I'm still your father." Gabriel's words followed softer, but searing. "You'll always be mine, Lucas. Always." And then my mother's wail pierced the silence, a sound I will never forget. But I didn't stop. My steps echoed across the marble floor until the night air hit me sharp and cold, carrying the salt of the ocean. I staggered outside, breath tearing in and out, tears burning hot down my face. A moment later, a hand touched my shoulder, gentle, steady. "Sophia." She said nothing at first, just stood beside me, her presence holding me up when my legs still threatened to give way. Finally, her voice broke the silence, soft, but weighted. "Lucas, do you think this truth will save you or destroy you?" I had no answer, only the sound of waves crashing in the distance and the hollow echo of everything I thought I knew, now gone.